I'm going to share a few words. I invite everyone to continue to tune in. So I'm going to share first a few words of Bruno Groening. These are almost exact quotes. The first one is, "You reap what you sow." The next one is, "Human beings," and this one my memory is not so good, but it's something along the lines of, "Human beings bring all their misfortune upon themselves." The essence of it was, if we're struggling, if we're having problems, it's because of something we've done. Bruno also said, I ask you not to determine the time in which a healing occurs, that it may occur as quickly as possible." Meaning, please, my understanding, please don't have a time in mind for when a healing should happen. If you don't do that, if you don't have a time in your mind set for when a healing will happen, it will happen more quickly. The next one is, God's wheel turns slowly but surely. In fact, I think he said God's mill, like a farming mill that slowly is engaged in this process. He also said the good will prevail. And the last one I would like to share is, it involves some German words. Please forgive my mispronunciation. Heilung, healing, is Heiligung, sanctification, or being made holy. It's very powerful. Heilung, healing, is Heiligung, sanctification. So now let's tie all of these together. So first and foremost, you reap what you sow, and human beings bring their misfortune upon themselves. So when bad things happen to us, it can seem unfair, especially if we don't see a direct cause. For example, if I drive down the road and I go higher than the speed limit and I get a ticket, it's easy for me to understand why I get a ticket. I went past the speed limit. But what happens if I'm on my way to a job that I really want, that I'm really excited about, and I get a flat tire, and so I'm late for the interview, and then I don't get the job, and I'm heartbroken? We human beings in general, have the habit of saying, that's so unfair. Why did this happen? And so in Bruno's teaching, as with many wisdom traditions, there's the teaching that everything happens for a reason. And when negative things happen, I hesitate to say always, but Bruno was very firm, you reap what you sow. We're reaping what we sowed. Something we did in the past, something negative, has come back to us. Maybe I interfered with someone getting their dream job. I don't know. It's not always possible to discern the exact reason. But Bruno called us to the understanding that there's always a reason and that it's always fair and ultimately for our good. So the next idea I presented. This is Bruno. I say I'm going to say I, but this is what Bruno said. I ask you not to determine for yourself the time in which a healing occurs, that it may occur more quickly. That's a hard one. Many people come to Bruno Groening seeking help because of physical challenges or illnesses. And when sometimes healings happen instantly, quickly, many times they don't. I believe one of the hardest parts of this path is to surrender this sense of timing and just keep practicing and ultimately trusting. I've shared that when I came to this teaching, I was on 4 medications for bipolar depression. The first one I got off very easily. It just happened very quickly. The second one happened even more quickly. The third one was a little bit of a struggle. It took a couple of months, but I was able to get off it. The fourth one was quite a process. I would decrease it and be fine. I decreased it and I was fine, but I decreased it down to 1 milligram. But that 1 milligram, I can't even remember how long it took me to get off that final little teeny tiny dose. It was frustrating. It was challenging. I would get off of it and then I would need to get back on it. It took some time. So I'd say all in all, I think it took about a year and a half to get off all 4 medications. The first 3 I was able to get off within 6 months. The first one I was able to get off within like 1 month. And the second one, I just stopped and it was easy. So I tend to be a bit of a logical person. I initially thought, okay, I just give the burden to Bruno and I tune in and everything will heal quickly and immediately. Well, that just wasn't my experience. Some things it was, some things it wasn't. 11 years later, some things I'm still healing because, and let's look at the word healing. So Bruno said, Heilung is healing, is Heiligung, sanctification, purification. It's easy to think of, like, let's say I have a problem with my elbow. It's easy to think like, oh, I have a problem with my elbow. But actually, from a spiritual point of view, I have taken in or done some kind of evil, darkness, negativity. And so actually, I don't have a problem with my elbow. What I have is I have some darkness, evil, negativity that needs to be purified. The elbow is more like a symptom. That's my understanding of what Bruno meant by healing is sanctification. And sanctification is a beautiful word. It means to make sacred. So we're not here, and to anyone who has a serious illness, like, go for that healing. Like, tune in, believe, give away the negative thoughts. And my understanding of Bruno's teachings is we're actually not here for healing. We're here for being made holy. We're not here for healing. We're here for holying, being made holy, being made pure. And healing is a side product of that. And it's wonderful. And I'm not putting down healings. They're amazing. Thank you, God. Thank you, Bruno, for coming. So this is this is beautifully highlighted by this one person who found Bruno in his teachings and had multiple healings, but there was one thing that wouldn't heal. And it was very frustrating. It was a very painful condition. So they kept coming back. They kept doing the practice. And in the middle of a community hour, they realized that they really had negative feelings towards, I think it was a family member, and that they needed to forgive that person. And as soon as they forgave that person, it healed. And it was like very bad back pain, like very bad. And as soon as they really forgave them, it healed. So this points to what Bruno Groening was saying. Healing is holying, sanctification, being made holy, being purified. So I also quoted Bruno as saying, God's mill grinds slowly but surely. And I wish I had the rest of the quote. It's something along the lines of, the great turnaround will happen, yet it's going to take time. Something along those lines. So the great turnaround isn't just all of humanity, which it is, but it's also each one of us as individuals to fully turn our back on evil and negativity and fully turn towards God and nature. That's not a little thing. That's not an overnight matter. It hasn't been for me, and I don't think it is for anyone. Bruno Groening said, I want you all to become masters of life. And Bruno Groening also said, I'm going to have to paraphrase, it's at the end of the documentary film. He said, all of you can do what I do. You just don't believe yet. I'm just a servant of God, which all of you are as well. You just don't believe, you just don't know it yet. So, not only are we involved in this process of sanctification, of being made holy, of being purified, not only is it a process that takes time and learning, but we're in a process to become masters of life. And Bruno said, I have come to restore balance to humanity, that they may become masters over matter. It's a very strong statement. Bruno lived it. We hear about all the healings that happened, many, many other things. For example, one time he was out with some people for a drive. The car broke down. They opened the hood. They tried to fix it. They couldn't fix it. So Bruno, went up to the front of the car. He just stuck his head underneath the hood, and the car fixed itself. All sorts of things where Bruno demonstrated that, well, through the power of God, nothing is impossible. Not just with respect to physical healings. And Bruno recommended that people read the books Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, which is a series of books about masters of matter, people who have control over matter. I'm not there yet. I've had some pretty amazing things happen to me above and beyond healings through this path. Doesn't happen every day. Such things don't happen often. For me, yet, Bruno Groening said, this is the path we're on. And he said, the good will prevail. It's such 4 simple words. The good will prevail. I try and think about it often. What does that mean? What it means to me is every problem will be solved. Everything will be healed. Or as Bruno also said, everything will be all right. But let's go back to God's mill grinds slowly but surely. And I love that Bruno described it as a mill because I'm not a farmer, but a mill is this thing that slowly turns around. And in that process, it sorts out, I believe, grain. It separates the grain from the part that you can eat from the part that you can't eat. And it's just this gradual, slow, gentle process. So all of this comes back to trust, which I believe is what faith really means, to trust in God, to trust in life, to trust in the process of life. Because life is challenging and painful. Every one of us seeks us, every one of us faces challenges every day. Hopefully they're not too big challenges, but every day there's bumps. Some days those bumps are really big. Some days we can have weeks and months of like almost no bumps. Some days we can have weeks and months where it's just huge bump after huge bump. So it's written that Christ talked about a solid foundation, that when the storm waters come, this solid foundation isn't swept away. What is that? What was he talking about? Well, it's not for me to say, but it is for me to say what I believe he meant. I believe he meant having faith and trust in God. That no matter what happens, everything will be all right. The good will prevail. As Bruno said, the state of the world is steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. Now, Bruno also said, people say yes to life, but do they stand by it? And said, in context, I believe he also meant saying yes to what's true. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, everything happens for a reason. But once this is complete and I get up and it's time to take on the day, for me, the spiritual path happens when I face the challenges of the day and then I continue to have faith. And the beautiful news is that we're not alone in this. Can't remember Bruno's exact words, but he said, something along the lines of, I am always with you. I'm not just saying this. I'll have to find it. I don't want to misquote him. But in essence, that Bruno said he's always with us, and that those are not just words. And I don't know about other people here, but before I started gabbing, I tuned in for a half hour. Some of you were with me for a whole half hour, and I felt fantastic. I was having a bumpy, challenging morning, and a half an hour of tuning in, which for me, tuning in is kind of a meditative way of asking God for help. I'm opening up to the power of God. It's a very poetic way of asking for help, of receiving the help. Maybe the asking is how we start, and then the tuning in is the receiving of the help. And we have to leave the results up to God. Bruno said, to not demand a healing, but to attain it. He said, if you want to experience God, you have to strive for it. So the good, I feel something so good and precious when I tune in. And I hear the same thing from others, that it's such a special feeling. And for people who are new, they don't always feel something. I had a very good friend who for 2 months, I think it was over 2 months, he didn't feel anything. The first time he tuned in, he felt a little something. And then for 2 months, he felt nothing. But what he did feel is that this is true and this is right and I need to pursue it. That's not so much a feeling as a conviction. And he did, and he had a healing of neck pain that had been with him for 20 plus years. And after that, he could feel the power of God, the Heilstrom, very, very clearly he could feel it. And Bruno talked about this. He said that the capacity to feel the power of God in many people has gone to sleep and needs to be awakened. That was true for me. I didn't feel anything the first time I tuned in. I don't think I felt anything for the first couple of times. And some days I sit down and I feel almost nothing. Some days I sit down and I feel like I'm in heaven. So all this is to say that the results aren't up to us, but it is up to us to strive and to trust. Oh, so thank you so very much. I'll have a closing prayer and a closing tuning in. I thank everyone for spending some time with me. Not on so much a personal level, but on the level of I'm convinced that these teachings can change the world. Because let's face it, the world's a mess right now. Bruno Groening back in the 50s said that life is, I'm paraphrasing, but life is so bad on this earth that people can barely live. And that was 70 so years ago. So not only do I want peace, happiness, and health for myself, I want it for everyone, but I want it on this planet. I'm convinced, I can't prove it, but my heart says, my being says that what Bruno Groening taught is a huge part. I'm tempted to say is the solution, but I don't want to be dogmatic and rigid, so I'll say a huge part, a key part of peace on earth for all of us. And then my thoughts just go to the Bible, which offers this story. Some people take it literally, some people not, of paradise lost, Christ coming and talking about a time when paradise would be restored. That's actually how the ending of the Bible is. Paradise is restored. Heaven and earth are brought together. Most people don't focus on that so much, but that's kind of the overall story of the Bible. It's a beautiful vision. And the way to bring it about, well, for each of us to practice and live by spiritual values, spiritual principles. Bruno said the more people who want, let me think of the exact phrase. The more people who want the good, the sooner it can be brought about here on this earth. It's almost an exact quote. So let's want the goods. The goods. Let's want the good. And I'll close with one of my favorite Bruno quotes. He said, I paraphrase, but almost exact. God has such goodness in store for human beings that they cannot readily fathom how much goodness is in store. I'm going to offer a prayer. Then we'll have a final quiet tuning in together. Beloved maker, source, whom Bruno spoke of as life itself, aliveness, Leben, as love, as goodness, as harmony. Whom Bruno pointed out is all around us and within us, our beloved parent, maker. Thank you so much for the gift of life. Thank you so much for your dear messengers, Jesus, Bruno, and many other wise sages, prophets, teachers. Please bless everyone who attended this gathering today. Please bless everyone who watches this. Please bless everyone who comes by this channel. Please, for all the friends of Bruno Groening, for all those who are sharing Bruno's teachings, please, for all the followers of Christ, for all those sharing the teachings of Christ, please, for all those who are seeking the good through so many different religions, so many different spiritual paths, but who are earnestly seeking what is good. Please, for all those who aren't seeking the good, who are temporarily lost, maybe feeling hopeless, maybe feeling hurt, maybe having taken on so much evil that they're just caught in it. Please, grace and mercy, help and healing. For ourselves, please, that we take up the divine connection and we strive to maintain it all day long. Please, trust and faith that no matter what's going on, we strive to have faith and trust that all things serve the good, that everything will be all right, that everything that happens is for our growth and learning. Please, vigilance to watch our thoughts, to only take up thoughts that are true and helpful. Please, for humility, the recognition that we need you, God, and we need nature. Please, for happiness, health, joy of life, sense of humor, that we can face the challenges of life with faith, now drop into silence. Of course, you can make your personal request inwardly. So, beloved Maker, we ask all these things, and then, of course, our personal requests and heart wishes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. I wish you a blessed, beautiful day. Take care. Much gratitude.